Hello everyone and welcome to another HOI4 modding lesson from the Iron Workshop. In this lesson we're going to learn how to create a basic focus tree. So there are 6 critical steps in creating a proper focus. And the first one is we need to create our mod files. Then we will need to create the folders and the files for the new focus tree that we're creating. Also, we will need to assign the focus to a country. That is done within the syntax of the focus file. In number 4, I will talk about how you may want to rearrange your focus syntax so that it has a certain structure to it, which is easy to understand and easier for you to edit in the future. Number 5 is creating the focus icon. Now we won't be creating anything very flashy or sophisticated, but it will show you what you need to do to make it work and appear in the game. Number 6 is assigning the localization for our focus, simply to have the text show up. And in number 7, I will talk about some additional syntax that you can use to make your focus more unique. Okay, let's begin. So first of all, let's open the HOI4 launcher. We'll go to mods, click on mod tools, click on create mod, and here I will give my focus mod a name. So let's call it the Cuba focus mod. Here I will assign it the version. Here we will give it its own unique folder. I will call it the Cuba focus, and we'll assign it its proper tags and click on create mod. Excellent. Our next step is to create our folder and file structure. So I will go to my HOI4 mod folder that's located in Documents, Paradox Interactive, HOI4 mod. And here you see that it already created our Cuba focused file, mod file, and our Cuba focus folder. And alongside that, I will open the vanilla HOI4 folder, which is located in your Steam folder. And now we're just going to be copying some base game files. So first of all, I'm going to recreate the common folder, just like in vanilla. Inside the common folder, we have a folder called National Focus. So I'm going to recreate that. And I'm going to borrow a file from the base game just so that we have the basic syntax that we need. So I'm going to borrow the Australia file, copy it over here to our mod, and I'm going to rename it to Cuba. Excellent. The next files that we will need are located inside the interface folder. So I'm going to recreate this folder in here. Interface, and from the interface folder we will need files called goals and goals shine. So I'm going to copy them over here, and now let's return to our root folder. Now we will recreate the GFX folder structure. So I will create a folder called GFX. And inside the GFX folder, I'm going to create a folder called Interface. And inside Interface, we also have a folder called Goals. So I'm going to recreate it. And I'm just going to copy over one of these files. Excellent. Now, the last folder that we will need is the localization folder. So let's recreate it in our mod folder. And here we're going to do something a bit different in order not to be dependent on the vanilla game files for your focused localization. I'm just going to copy an existing file and I'm going to rename it to Cuba. Sorry, we'll need the English one. And I'm going to rename it to Cuba Focus L English. I'm going to open this file and I'm going to remove everything after L English, since we don't need it. And I'm going to save this file, and now we can close it. We will get back to this file towards the end of this video. Excellent, so this is our focus mod folder structure, and these are all the files and folders that we will need. And now we can move on to number 3, assigning our focus to a country. Okay, now let's go ahead and open our new focus file. And you will notice that there is quite a lot going on in here, and we'll just have to clean this up a bit and just leave the stuff that we need for ourselves. So this first section, country and ID, we're going to keep. Also, we're going to keep the default no syntax as well, and the continuous focus position as well. All the rest can go, besides the syntax for an existing focus. So what I'm going to do is going to go to the end of the file, and then I'm just going to remove everything by holding the Shift key before focus, so that it looks like this. Now if I just zoom out a little bit, you will see that we have the focus tree, opening bracket, and the closing bracket here. I'm just going to remove some of this space, and now we have our basic syntax for our focus. I'm going to save the file, and now let's go and analyze this thing from top to bottom. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So the first thing that we will have to do in this file is to assign it a unique ID, so that the game knows how to access this specific focus tree. So I'm obviously going to change this from Australian to Cuban focus. You can give it any other ID, just make sure that the ID has only small letters and doesn't have spaces. Next, this is the country that's going to get this focus. Now, this can be a bit confusing to somebody who deals with this for the first time, but basically it works in the sense that the game does not assign the focus to any country, and then you give it a modifier which increases the chance that a certain country will get the focus. And this is what happens here in this section in modifier. So if your country tag is AST, which stands for Australia, then there's a 10% chance that Australia will get it. Now, since no other country has this tag, it means that only Australia is going to get it in this example. Obviously, you can play around with this, but we want to keep things simple. Also, for this focus, you need to have the DLC Together for Victory. I'm just going to remove this line. I'm going to remove this as well. And I will change AST to the Cuba country tag, which is CUB. Okay, let's save the file. Next up is default no. Now, for those of you who have watched my syntax lesson, this is a Boolean, and that is why it has a yes and no parameters. So in this example, it tells the game that this focus tree is not the default one, it's not the generic one. The generic one is the focus trees that all countries that don't have their own focus trees are going to use. Now, I'm going to keep it at no, but if you're trying to create a generic focus tree, then you will obviously want to have this set to yes. Next one is the continuous focus position. Now, in the focus trees, if you recall, we have at the bottom the section for continuous focuses, and you will need to set the position for this for each focus tree. Now, the way that you do this is by assigning the X and Y parameters, and the easier option is to start the game in debug mode, which we're going to do very soon, and then just play around until you see that it fits and sits in the correct position. For now, we're going to leave it at this. So it's quite good for most focuses, but if your focus tree is really big, then you might want to move it around a bit. Okay, so we're done with number 3, assigning our focus to a country, and we've also set it that it's not the default one, and we've set the continuous focus position. Now we're going to move to number 4, rearranging the focus syntax. Now this is something which is personally my own whim, something that I like to do in order to make things more clear. What I mean by reassigning the syntax is that we're going to place the syntax in a very specific way. I would recommend that when you create new focus trees, you put the syntax in the same order so that it has sections, and in each section you have certain parameters which are constant and you can always know and access them and not forget to include them in your focus trees. So what I'm going to do is the following. We'll start at the beginning. So this is the ID of this focus branch. This is the first focus that's going to appear in our focus tree, and we will see that right away when I start the game in debug mode. And I'm going to first of all change this to, let's say, something like Cuba is the greatest. It doesn't really matter the ID that you set, as long as, just like with the ID here, it doesn't have spaces, big letters, anything like that. Next is the icon of your focus. So I'm going to leave it as is for now. Then we have the prerequisites. Now, I don't really like this because the prerequisites is what this focus will need to work properly. And here we're still dealing with things like ID and icons and positions, so I don't think that it fits here. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to remove it and just put it like down here. Excellent. So now we have the ID, we have the icon, and this is the position of the focus branch on the screen. So for now we're going to keep it as is. This is the relative position ID, and I'm going to actually talk about this a bit later, but this is also something that I want to have in this section here, since it controls the actual position of the graphic. So it makes sense that it would be here alongside with these parameters. Okay, then we have the cost. Now, again, the cost is something which is quite basic information about the focus. So I'm going to keep it together with the prerequisites, but I would prefer it to be on top of it, like this. Okay, this is AI will do. So this tells the AI when it should use this focus. Now, for me, this is the least important thing in the focus, at least when you first initially build it. So I can move this to the bottom. I just don't see a reason for it to be up here on the top. So I'm going to cut that syntax, that code, and I'm going to put it here at the bottom. Okay, now this is available. This is what needs to be true for us to be able to take the focus. Now, the difference between available and prerequisite is that here you will always need to put a focus that comes before this one, that it can unlock it, right? So available is, in my opinion, more important than prerequisite, since sometimes you may not always have a prerequisite. So I'm going to copy this syntax as well, and I'm going to put it in here. And this will determine what will bypass this focus. In my opinion, also a very important parameter. So I'm also going to put it in here like this. Sorry. Like this. Excellent. So it's coming along. Next, we have all of these booleans, right? Yes, no. And in my personal opinion, I like to have them all in one place so that I can always go from top to bottom and set them yes, no, and know that I have finished with my booleans. So I like to have them together here. And this is the completion reward. What happens when the player finishes our focus? So it makes sense for it to be at the end, just before the AI decision. Okay, so this is our focus structure. This is how I like to create my focuses. You don't have to do this, but it becomes a much bigger problem once you have a lot of focuses, it helps a lot to have things organized in a more clear way. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. Okay, so now we're going to go into the game with debug mode enabled. If you don't know what debug mode is or how to enable it, I will have a link to that in the video at the top. So check it out before you continue this lesson, because only in debug mode you can update your focus and see it change live in the game. Okay, so let's open Hearthstone 4. We'll go to mods, manage mods. I'm going to enable my Cuba focus mod, and I'm going to start the game. Okay, now let's open our Cuba focus tree, and you see that we already have our focus showing up, but obviously the icon is not great. Also, it's located in a really strange position. So now we're just going to fix it up a little bit, just to make sure where we stand. So we've finished 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're still rearranging some of our syntax, and then we will move on to creating our focus icon. Right, so let's open the game here, and I'll open Notepad++ here, and let's change some of these things. So first of all, I want my focus to show up in a more normal position, since right now it's way over here. So what I'm going to do is to change, first of all, the relative position ID. Now, what this does is it tells this particular focus that it should take its position, its initial position, from another focus, in this case, this one. But since this one doesn't exist in this focus tree, then that confuses the game a little bit. So it throws the focus all the way off. So I'm just going to remove this line, but I'm not going to remove it in the normal way. I'm just going to comment it out. Now, the way you comment out stuff, syntax in Hearthstone 4, is that you put a little hashtag in front of it, and then the game just ignores this line. So I'm going to save it. And as you can see, our focus icon has quickly jumped to its more normal position, which is X, which is 3 on the X-axis and 5 on the Y-axis. Okay, so this position is fine for now. Obviously, if you want it in other positions, you can play with the numbers, that's fine. But now let us change a couple more stuff. So first of all, I don't want to have these conditions in order to do the focus. So let's just say that we're going to change this so that we can do this focus if we're not in a faction with the United States, which is currently true. Okay. And we also need to change our prerequisite. You will see that currently I can't really do this focus because it requires another focus that we don't have. So I'm also going to comment out this line. And now the focus is available to us and we can do it. Okay. And here I can set the cost. Now the cost is measured in days, right? So with a cost of 10, it will cost us 70 days. With a cost of 1, it will cost us 7 days, and so on. Also, we have these booleans, so we can cancel the focus if the available section is no longer true, and currently it's set to yes. We can continue the focus if available is invalid, and here it's set to no. And we can also make the focus available or this focus branch available if the country is capitulated. And this is our completion reward. So what do we get when we finish the focus? Right now I would just like to get some political power, so I'm just going to change the syntax here to political power 100, and now we should get some political power. Sorry, that's add political power. And as you can see now, the effect is political power plus 100. Okay, now let's talk a bit about the AI will do. Now this goes into the very complex area of AI modding. To keep things simple in this lesson, I'm not going to go into this too much. I'm just going to say that in most cases, if you create a new focus tree, the AI will use what is available to it. So if this is your only focus branch, and that's all the AI has to work with, it will always do this one. And you can just tell the AI which focuses you want it to do first, which to do later. With the AI will do syntax. So it's a bit complex and it will require you to experiment quite a bit. What I would like to do now is for us to create another focus branch and just link between them. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take all of this syntax, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right below our current focus branch. And the first thing that I'm going to do is to assign it its own unique ID so that the game doesn't confuse these two. So let's call this Conquer USA. Excellent. The next thing, I'm going to give it a relative position ID, and I want to show you what this does. So first of all, you will need to tell this focus branch on which focus it relies when it decides its position. So I'm going to put in this one. I'm going to save the file, and now you see that it appeared here, but its position is way off, so we'll have to pick it up a little bit. As for all this other stuff, it doesn't really matter right now. Again, it's all depends on how you want to do these things. But what I'm going to do is to enable the prerequisite, and once you enable this, it will create that line between the two focuses. So let's do it like this, and now we have our line. So what this means is that this focus currently looks at its position and it says, okay, my position is 5 below this focus, which is why it puts it down here. But if I change it to 1 and I save it, you will see that it jumps all the way up to here, right? The same thing goes for the X, so it positions it with 3 jumps from this focus, but if I change it to 1, you will see that it positions it like this. So it's quite easy to understand how this works once you experiment with this a little bit. And that's basically all you need to know. This is how you create these very complex focus trees and how you link between them. And now let's move on to changing our focus icon. Okay, now let's go ahead and create our focus icon. I'm going to keep the game running for now, but you should know that focus icons usually do not update properly in real time. So it's quite possible that you will need to shut down the game and start it again in order to see your updated focus icon. Now to create our focus icon, we're going to go into our Cuba focus root folder. In here, we're going to go to GFX, interface, goals. These are the folders and files that we've created before. And this is the file that we took before. So I'm just going to change this one to focus Cuba Conquer USA. Just so that I know which focus is using this icon. We're going to open this icon in paint.net. Just drag it in here. Okay. Now I won't be showing you how to create complex graphics for focuses, since quite honestly this will make the lesson way too long, but I'm just going to make some small changes so that we can see them reflected in the game. And now we're going to save this file. Now, obviously, if you want to bring in your own file, if you want to change it, all you have to do is to open it here, place it instead of this file, and there you have it. So let's save it. We'll tell Notepad, we'll tell Paint.net to overwrite. And here, make sure to select this option and click on OK. Now the next thing that we have to do is to tell the game that we have this focus icon now introduced into the game. To do that, we will need to use our Cuba interface files. So I'll go to interface inside our Cuba focus folder. And here we have goals and goals shine. Now the reason that we have two files is that the game uses two separate entries for when the focus is static like that, and when it plays this little shining animation that you see playing right now when the focus is available. So we will need to create these two entries. Now let's open this file. This file is huge and can be a bit scary, but don't worry about it too much. The only thing that you have to do here is the following: copy an existing entry, sprite type. We'll just be using the first one. Put it, let's say, at the beginning of the file. And now we'll have to give it its unique name, and that is the name that we will assign to it in the focus file. So it's usually a good idea to follow the naming convention of the vanilla game. So I'm going to call this GFX goal, and I'm going to call this Cuba Conquer USA. And this is the path to our file. So our name of the file is Focus Cuba Conquer USA. I'm just going to copy it, put it in here, and there we go. So that's number one. This is how the icon will look like this in here. And this one is the animation playing when the focus is available. Now, again, quite a scary file, but don't be afraid. All you have to do is the following. We're going to take another sprite type entry, and we're going to create our own. So I'm going to copy all of this stuff, put it in here, and change the following. So first of all, we need to change the name, and the name has to be the same name that you have in here, followed by underscore shine, like this. Okay, this is very important. If you don't do this properly, what happened is that when the focus is in an unavailable state, it will show up, but once it needs to play the animation, you will not see it. So it's quite important that you use the same name as you used in here, underscore shine. Okay. Next thing is that we have to change the texture file for our focus. So we're just going to take this texture file, copy it, and put it in here. Now, this is one good thing about Notepad++ is that you see that when I double click goal unknown, it highlights all the places that I have it already. So we will have to change it in all of these, 1, 2, 3. So let's just put it in here, and in here, and in here, and save it. Excellent. So now the game knows which file to use in the normal state and which file to use when the focus is available for the player to do. But we're not done yet. We do still have to tell the game to use these new files. So I'm going to copy this name here from our goals.gfx file, and I'm going to put it here in the icon and save the file. Now, as I've said before, The game sometimes messes up loading these files if you didn't restart the game, and you may see results like this. This doesn't mean that your file is wrong or is displaying incorrectly. This is just the game trying to compensate. So all you need to do is to restart the game, and then the focus will show up properly. The focus icon will show up properly. So let's do that right now. So I'm going to close the game. So let's see if our focus graphic is displaying correctly. Okay, there we have it. Conquer USA, just like in paint.net, showing correctly. So that is all you have to do in order to change the icon of your focus tree. And now we will move on to assigning the localization. So in order to assign the localization, we'll have to go into the localization folder of our mod and open the file that we've created. And now we'll have to do two things. First of all, we'll copy the name of our focus branch like this. And it's usually a good idea to put a space at the beginning. Then we're going to type the following and give it the name. So Cuba is the greatest. I'm probably misspelling some stuff in here. And now it should show up in our focus tree, but it doesn't. The reason for this is that the focus needs to be refreshed or reloaded in order for the game to see this new localization. So to do that, just open the console by pressing the tilde key and type the following command: reload focus. And once you do that, you see that the name is now applied in the game. And the next thing that we're going to do is to create the description so that this section has its description. So to do that, just copy the name of the focus followed by underscore desk like this, and just type some description. Cuba is the greatest country in the world. All other countries suck. Excellent. So that is all you need to know in order to create your focus tree. But now I do want to talk about some more additional syntax that you can use to improve your focus tree. So let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so the first bonus syntax that I want to talk about is the mutually exclusive syntax. So let's take, for example, this situation where I have two focus branches, which should be mutually exclusive. So how do I create that little parameter that allows me to take only one of these? So if we open our focus tree, in here you just have to add this line, mutually exclusive equals opening bracket focus equals the name of the focus that this focus is mutually exclusive with, and closing bracket. Now this line has to be on both of the focuses that are exclusive with each other. So let's do it right now. So let's say that send cigars to USA is mutually exclusive with conquering the USA. So I'm just going to take the ID of Conquer USA. I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to copy this line in here as well. But in here I'm going to put this one. And now when I save it, you will see that the focus updates and it creates this little graphic which now tells the player that these two focuses are mutually exclusive. The next one is select effect. So what this syntax allows me to do is to give the player something related to the focus before the focus is finished, right? Because usually in order to get the effects of the focus, the player needs to finish it. But if I want to give them something before that, I can put it here in the select effect. So for example, let's say that before when they select to start the focus, I want to give them political power. So I'm just going to put it in here and save. And now what happens, actually let's relocate it to the first one, just so that it's easier to see. So what will happen now is that once I take this focus branch and I'm going to click on start, my political power is going to change to 100, and obviously when I finish the focus I'm going to get an additional 100. Now you can put every effect in here that you can think of, and this is a very nice introduction by Paradox that has made focus trees much more interesting. The next one is allow branch. Now this is a new addition to the focus trees, which allow you to completely block or make branches of focus trees invisible to the player unless they meet certain conditions. So for example, here you can see that currently I can see all of these focuses, but if I uncomment this line, only if the player has more than 500 political power, which I currently don't, will I be able to see this focus. Now, since these focuses are dependent on this one, that means that all of them are going to disappear. So if I hit save, you see that it's all gone. And one last feature that I want to talk about are the search filters, which were introduced in the 1.9 Husky update. So as you know, in the focus trees, we can have these filters at the top, but you will need to assign them to your focuses. You can also create new ones, but I will not be explaining how to do that just yet. Now you can use the existing ones in the vanilla HOI4 localization folder. You will find a file called focus filter tag L English, and if you open it, you will see the names of these filters in here. Now what you can do, you can just copy them, put them in this syntax of search filters, save the file, and now what happens is that this focus is now filtered with that filter. So very simple, very easy, and can bring quite a bit of order into your focus tree. Okay, so that is it, guys. This is how you create a basic focus tree in HOI4. Let me know in the comments if you have any trouble following this tutorial, this lesson. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson on the Iron Workshop. Bye. Hey guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Check out these other videos on the Iron Workshop that you might enjoy as well. Please consider supporting the Iron Workshop on Patreon. This will allow the channel to grow and become even better. Thank you.